500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
The Phantom,
the ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds you.
G'day everyone. For those who came in late, you're listening to Expand, the Fenneman podcast. This is episode 140. It's a very special episode of the podcast, one like which we haven't done before, and probably a bit more serious than some. We'll talk about that in detail in a moment. My name's Dan Fraser, and tonight I'm joined by Jermaine Parker in WA. How are you, Jerm?
Pretty good, mate. Yeah, looking forward to tonight. But yeah, you're right. A little bit special, a little bit somber as we talk about some real life issues rather than just whether we're Focus or postmodernist. That type of stuff takes a little bit of a backward seat.
Backward seat, that's it. Speaking of the back seat, Steve in the back seat of the Subaru. Well done, Jerm. Stephen East is with us today. Stephen from the back seat of the recording studio tonight. In Victoria, I should say.
How's it going, Dan? G'day, Jerm. G'day, everyone. It's always good to be back, and I'm in a nice, spacious back seat. It must be noted, and I can also recline it, which is also good.
Very good.
So, anyone from Subaru listening, the Outback is a fantastic car, and if you'd like to throw some sponsorship dollars our way,
there you go. All right. Well, the reason I mentioned specifically that Stephen's in Victoria and Jerm's in Western Australia, I'm in Queensland, is because we sort of want to point to the fact that we are recording from all over Australia, and what we're dealing with today, what we're talking about today, is a pretty significant event that has struck Australia as a whole over the last, probably 6 months since the season started, but the last month or two in particular, and that's the bushfires, of course, that have been global news in terms of the devastation that's been wreaked, mostly through New South Wales, it must be said, and that's not a state that either of or any of us live in. But it's been absolutely devastating, the bushfires that have gone through, and some of the raw statistics are sobering enough in themselves. At the moment, at the time of recording, it's the 18th of January, 2020, and right now in the last month or 6 weeks, 29 people have died in bushfires. A lot of those are volunteer firefighters who have put themselves in the line of duty or to try and save other people's properties and to save their towns. Local heroes, people who aren't recognised on a day-to-day basis, and unfortunately it takes something tragic like this for them to get their name up in lights, and families are just absolutely devastated at all of those men and women who haven't come home, lost their lives fighting fires, trying to save homes, trying to save communities. Speaking of homes, over 2,500 family homes have been lost. Entire towns have been almost wiped out. There was a town where 90, 100 homes all vanished. Just absolutely razed to the ground by the fires that have come storming through. Terrible weather conditions, terrible wind has just swept them up and brought them through. Again, right now it's estimated that something like 46 million acres of bushland, or 18.6 million hectares, have been burned. Entire forests, entire valleys, entire communities, again, as I say. And something like over... it was probably 3 weeks ago they were saying 500 million animals had been killed, and koalas have sort of become the face of that. But so many Australian marsupials and local wildlife, and even things like bees and entire populations of colonies of animals have just been lost. And it's just been a real tragedy and so heartbreaking over the last 6 weeks, 2 months. Just watching the news, seeing these things on our TV screens. On a nightly basis for us, and certainly a lot closer to home for a lot of people. How have you guys sort of seen the news as it's happened? Jerm, over you, we might start with you.
It's a little bit removed in the sense that I'm over in the other side of the country, but the amount of people that have had contact me, fan people that have been dealing with for other people and stuff like that, just asking, you know, are you okay? You know, what's happening, and you know, and stuff like that. Like you said, it is worldwide, and you know, there was actually one stage where WA was actually shut off from the rest of Australia, you know, with bushfires and flooding up north and stuff like that. So, you know, like, so yeah, it's, I don't know, it is very sombering. It's very hard to kind of, I guess, famine. And I guess that's where, you know, something which we're about to talk to is, you know, once in a lifetime opportunity where we can actually make a difference, a small difference.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Stephen? Victoria's obviously had a number of deaths and destruction. Any real threats around Ballarat personally for you or people you know?
Not really. A little bit before Christmas, up in around Lexington, which is not far from here. It's about a 10-15 minute drive, I suppose. They had a decent fire out there that lasted a couple of days, but mainly it's in Gippsland, over in Gippsland for this past period of time, and there's just pretty much every day there's smoke everywhere. I don't know if you guys get any of that in your parts of the country, but last week I was driving down to Melbourne to my in-laws' place, and had to slow down. It was you'd think it was a fog, but it's not fog. It's smoke, and you couldn't see 300 meters in front of you. So, and I know people who have gone over to fight the fires. So people, volunteers from places like Ararat, and well, that's the people who I know. They've gone over to Gippsland a couple of times. I've done a couple of rounds over there to help them out. So yeah, even though I haven't been personally touched by it, but we've got the smoke as a constant reminder of what people are dealing with, and we can't complain about the smoke when other people have lost so much more.
Oh, that's exactly right. And I think that's a sentiment that's echoing around Australia. Any of the places that aren't directly impacted, we all know about it because it's in the atmosphere. Just before Christmas, at the start of the school holidays, I guess there was a fire, probably only 20 k's from Toowoomba, and it was, threatening homes and that sort of thing for quite a number of days. And the haze came in then, and it hasn't really lifted because while that fire is out, thankfully, the extent of the fires down through New South Wales and just the weather patterns, as you say, Steve, like the eastern seaboard just has basically been in a blanket for a long, long time. I should say that today, as we are recording, it's thankfully been raining here for probably a day and a half now, and it's so uplifting. And I know that there's lots of places in New South Wales that are starting to see a little bit of rain as well.
Yeah.
And you see all of the posts on Facebook about people going out and doing dances in the rain and hallelujahs and all the rest of it. But I think it's really important to, while we can enjoy the rain, you can't forget that the devastation has already happened. And in many ways, next 3-4, exactly right. The worst of it is the impact is now to come. The amazing pictures that we've seen of firestorms and all the rest of it may go, but people are going to be living with the consequences of this for a long time to come.
Like, for instance, they're having to do food drops for the animals that have actually survived and stuff like that. One thing that I should have made mention before, but I believe he actually listens to the podcast, but a phantom friend, Carlo, I believe, is actually over there fighting the fires at the moment. I think he's a volunteer firefighter. And so,
do you mean Carlisle Sears?
Yeah, I believe
he actually has been personally affected. He saw some of his photos on Facebook, and houses literally on either side of him burnt down, and he decided to stay and fight the fire. He lost his car, but he was able to save his house, and that must have been such a near thing and so scary. Some of the pictures you've said. Alan Lucic as well, I've seen pictures from as well. I met Alan at the Fenneman dinner last year, and he volunteers for the firefighters around where he lives as well. And so I think Bradley Peach, I've spoken to him. The fires were within 10 k's of his place. He was not stressed about it, but everybody, so many Australians know people who are directly affected.
But I guess just mentioning Carlisle and Alan, a lot of listeners will know these people, and so it kind of, I guess that these are people that we know, these are people that we catch up with, once or twice a year and stuff like that have been affected. So yeah,
and there'd be many more Phantom fans who we are not aware of necessarily who are as well. So and I guess that speaks to why we are doing what we're doing.
Yes.
Because and maybe Jerm, it was a brainstorm amongst us all. Do you want to sort of give a bit of a background as to why we decided to try and step up and do something as the Chronicle Chamber team, I guess?
Well, I guess, we all kind of sit back. A lot of people sit back and go, well, what can I do? And I know we were thinking that, I know my wife asked something. I know I'm sure both of your families have said stuff like that as well. And it was really just probably Sal Veludo's got a fair bit to play in this, in the what would you call it, the genesis of what we're about to talk about, of the fundraising.
He was the first Phantom artist that we saw who came out and said, right, I want to raise funds for charity in Australia, for Bushfire Appeal in Australia, and I'm going to do some pictures and sell them, and that money's going to go to and that was really what sparked the idea of trying to encourage other artists to do that and collect those images in a book. Yeah,
and it's, pardon the pun, and it's probably not the right time, but it spread like wildfire. Basically, the plans for the book, we were like, we could probably do something. We were looking at, I guess we were looking at what, 15, 20 pages, and we had some plans that was we couldn't really get anything, and and I guess Sal really encouraged us to do it. He was just like, look, this would be good. He basically said, don't just expect through or a publisher to do it. So he encouraged us, which is nice. We joked about in the podcast interview that we did with him. He's kind of like an ambassador for the Phantom, and a lot of the stuff that he does might not get the accolades or recognition or whatever, but he does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and there's a lot of mentoring that he does with other artists that we see, like Massimo and Luca, and a lot of these other guys that he really mentors as well, and I guess he, in a sense, encouraged us, and so we thought we'll take the plunge, and so far we're enjoying it.
Well, it has been really cool, and as you say, it has spread very quickly. I'm not going to repeat terrible pun, but the idea of putting together a book of unique Phantom images that have never been published before, collected into a book that is to raise money for. We've chosen Red Cross Australia. We'll talk a bit more about them in a moment, but to raise money for the Bushfire Appeal. It's just proven to be amazingly popular. It's only 9 or 10 days since we put the first post up and maybe emailed a couple of artists, and just the people who have support, the overwhelming support, people. And I think there's been a lot of people sitting at home going, what can I do? How can I help in a meaningful way? And people have really jumped on board with this one. It's really cool.
Yeah, and one thing that I love about Australians, and we see this all the time, but they get behind stuff like this. Australians do have a heart of gold. We are battlers and stuff like that, but we, when there's a cause or something like that, we will jump behind it, and we'll go over the numbers and stuff like that, but the response has been overwhelming.
Yeah. And not just Australians, there's a lot of international artists who have, Stealth for starters, but a number of artists, which I'm sure we'll get to in a moment, they're not Australian, they're from overseas, and it's been really touching how they've been so quick to jump on board and give a hand.
Well, just about every
Yeah.
continent. We talk sometimes about the reach of the podcast and or the Fenneman and how there's. I think we mentioned in the best of 2019 he was being published in every continent except Africa and Antarctica. We joked about that if I remember rightly, and probably those are the only two continents that haven't already contacted us or even contributed work so far. So South America, North America, Europe, the subcontinent of Asia, Australia as well. You know, there's artists from all over the world are keen to help and get involved. So it really is going to have a global flavour, this book, which is
that's
really
what I
nice.
like. I like the fact. Let's talk a little bit about the book, and then I guess we can kind of go from there.
Okay. So the idea, it's a pretty simple book. We are not going to put many words in it. It's going to be mostly pictures. We should say straight up
the words that will be probably spoken by you, which is pretty typical for those of
yeah, probably. I am trying to outsource where I can. I should mention, and we'll mention them again at the end, but Jeffrey's Printing Services have come on board and could not be more. The book couldn't happen if it wasn't for them. We contacted. It was at the recommendation of Paul Masson, where I sort of reached out and asked Paul who he used for his work in progress books that he's issued with Kid Fenneman and Fenneman in Nam, and he said Jeffrey's, and I emailed them. And he came back straight away. Baden came back straight away he was so supportive of the concept, and he straight up offered the donation of printing services to create 200 books. So the fact that we're going to, that was the moment, wasn't it? When we go, oh, okay, so we can print
we were
this.
thinking maybe 50 books.
Yeah, you guys are thinking 50. No, we've got to go bigger than that. And and then he's come back with 200. Yeah, see, this has got legs, fellas.
Yeah, it does. and that was the moment for me where you go, right, we can do this. So without Jeffrey's printing, it wouldn't be happening. So very much appreciative of that. So we are looking at, it's not hard and fast or settled at the moment. We're looking at somewhere between 20 and 30 pages.
Minimum of 200 books as well.
Yeah, correct. And we will look at ways to increase the print run, especially if there's especially if the demand is there, and I get the sense that there will be. I honestly do. So the idea is, we'll have a bit of a blurb right at the start just to say why would basically what we've said here tonight, and then it's going to be over to the artists, and every page will be a new Phantom artwork that you haven't seen before, or you may have seen on Facebook by the time the book comes out. But many of them you won't have seen ever anywhere.
Yes.
And a lot of them have been created specially for the book, which is fantastic. We sort of, when we told artists that we're looking for a book that's themed around the bushfire crisis and the recovery efforts that are being put into place, and that's it. That's literally the only guideline we gave to any of the artists, and they've really come back with some absolute gold, as you'll see. I guess if you go to ChronicleChamber.com, we're going to put some snippets of some of the pictures on the webpage there that goes along with this podcast, and also via our Facebook page, we're certainly going to be publicising, because another thing, of course, is that we're encouraging the artists to sell the original art, and lots of them are doing it traditionally so that they can, and that money will also go towards Red Cross as well, which is just fantastic.
Like, for instance, that's a very good point that you just made. Like Luca Uberta, who we all marvelled at his cover. Normally he works in digital. So, and then he did his drawing traditionally, and it's, from what I understand, it's the 4th traditional Phantom picture that he has actually done. So all of his other stuff, that's actually going to be available to either covers or for sale.
Yeah, wow.
And then all of the others have all been done digitally. So, that's someone who works in the digital on the computer normally and has said, no, I want to do it traditional, so that way I can raise some more money. And, there is another $400 that he's sold his piece for that's, gone to charity as well.
That's
and
fantastic.
then Sell, who you made mention as well, that's $2,000 as well. So, everyone wins, I guess. People get brilliant artwork, and then Red Cross gets some more donations as well.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess just to mention some of the artists who have already submitted. We're not going to go over everyone who. There's over 70 artists on our list now who we have contacted, or they have contacted us. Probably 60 or over 50 certainly have said that they're interested in doing something, and 20 odd have already submitted something or shown us a work in progress. And again, in only 9 or 10 days, that is just phenomenal and just speaks to how keen people are to help out.
I hope Glenn and every other publisher did not hear that, because they might use that little audio clip just to send to the artist next time when they're waiting for a cover. It's like, hang on, you gave them a complete drawing inside a week. How come it's taken longer for us to get our cover?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, I guess just to go through some of the artists who have contributed, one of the big names, of course, is going to be Cy Barry, because he is in many ways the fandom artist still, and internationally recognised. He's contributed a piece which is wonderful. It hasn't been announced as being on for sale yet, but he is planning on selling that, making that available for sale for $500 American. So check out the socials or hit up cybarry.com. You can contact them through their website then there to see if that one's still available by the time you hear this. Sal Valuto, we've already mentioned. Paul Masson, we've already mentioned, as someone who helped inspire us and helped get this moving. He's committed a book as well, which is a picture as well, and it's an absolute ripper. I really love that one.
Fantastic.
Paul just got a heart attack when he said that he's contributed a book.
A book. Yeah, we're waiting on the other 29 pictures, Paul. Lou Manor was probably the first artist to come through with a bushfire themed picture, and that is visible on our Facebook now. But it's an absolute ripper, and that was one of the ones where it really just touches your heart to see. And he's used the koala motif. A lot of artists have, which is and the Phantom saving koalas sort of thing, and because we got that really early, the crisis was still right in its zenith sort of thing. So that was quite touching. And then probably lesser known artists who, so I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong. Sorry. Ciro Balzano from Italy has sent us in a picture as well. Robert Polak, who is an American artist who hasn't done published fandom work, but is a published cartoonist. Arif Iqbal from Bangladesh, who has had fandom work published by Lightning Strike, has contributed as well. Guy Passant from Canada. One that I really like is from Dean Rankin, who is an Australian artist. He's most well known as a Simpsons artist. He does the Simpsons comic book. So, and he got in touch with us very early in the piece to say, hey, I've heard you doing this. Can you please accept my submission? And of course, we were delighted to. Who are some of the other ones that I'm missing?
So you've also got Matt Kime, Jason Paulos, Keith Williams. So there's a couple of others. Alex
Saviuk, is another name that people.
Luca, who we may mention before. Luca Uberta. Anthony Spey, who has we've talked about in the December Comics and News podcast, and we've also had an article with a quick introduction about him. He's got some free work, I believe, coming through. Wendell I can't pronounce his last name, but Cavalcanti, who's the Brazilian artist who did the free cover. He's just given us a work in progress as well. A couple that I'm really excited about. Joan Boyks is another one.
Yes, I'm excited about his.
Yeah, Tony Menzie is another one. He's actually got two on the go. So I've told him that I'm not sure if we're going to be able to fit two in, but I said we'll at least get one of them in.
Absolutely.
But one of the ones that he's got is really touching, and one thing that you don't see often is the Phantom crying, and it's touching seeing the Phantom cry, and he's captured that moment. And then probably the other one that might be one of the most exciting pieces of all, just from a pure comic point of view, would be Norm Breyfogle, who most fandom artists would not know who he is or who he was. He sadly passed away towards the end of 2018, so about a year and a half ago. But one of the estate holders who actually contacted us and said, you know, we've got some sketches of Norm that he did of the Phantom that hasn't been published before. You know, would you be able to use, you know, we would love for you to be able to use one of those. And so we've been able to use one of those as well, and put a bit of a bushfire twist to it as well.
Well, we had a colorist
yeah.
who contacted us saying that offering his support, and so for us to be able to give him this sketch of or this drawing of Norm's and say, "Can you colour this?" and he's leapt at the chance, of course, and so that's Sean Ellery, who I think is from Queensland. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Sean, but
yeah, I think he was. But he's actually got two. He's actually doing two colorings for us as well. So hopefully he's got those sharp pencils and he'll be able to fit the deadline.
yeah. So and probably certainly well over half of the contributions we've had are going to be related to the bushfire crisis. Obviously, Norm didn't draw his with the bushfire in mind, but with the way we can get that coloured, it'll fit the theme in it. So that's really cool as well. I quite like seeing those ones come in. Yeah,
and what I like is the it's great to see the Phantom artists, which we've made mention of, because they're names that most people that listen to this podcast will know. But I also love the fact that we're getting other artists and with different styles that as well, and I think it's just going to add to the book.
Well, we got that one from Darrin, which was a bit different for us.
Yeah. I like it. I'm intrigued to be able to hear what people think of some of the different artworks. But it's a good example.
And just in case, because it muffled for me, just in case it didn't turn out for listeners, Darrin Ship was the name that Steve said then. So we've rattled off 15, 20 names there. So that should hopefully get people excited to see new pieces of work from all of those artists. And as I said, there's at least another 30 who have said that they would try. Now, not everyone's going to have time to be able to get it done, because we have deliberately set quite a short deadline, because we want to get this done in a timely fashion so that the money can actually get in time to be helpful during what, as we've said, is going to be another difficult time going forward. But people seem to be really on board with that. We've been saying all along, we've been saying, can you get this done in about 2 weeks, about a 2 week turnaround for us? And no one has blinked at that, which is cool. So we'll see. As we've said, we're aiming for about a 30-page book. Obviously, this is not all going to fit into 30 pages, and that's a really good headache to have. So that kind of leads me to the next point, I guess, because one of the artists we reached out to as well was Peter Kingston, who listeners of the podcast will remember, or Fenneman fans might remember, as being the curator and one of the contributing artists to the Phantom Art Show that was going around Australia from 2015 to 2017 sort of thing. He also has done Phantom Art shows in the 1970s and has been a long-time fan. Previous podcast guest on I'm going to say about episode 45, so quite some time ago, but dig that one up. And he wasn't in a position, he is a really well-renowned artist, but he's just not in the position at the moment to create anything for us. But what he did do was send us a whole bunch of things from the Phantom Art Show itself to donate to the cause. And he said, just use these however you can. He was just really keen to help out. He sees this as a massive crisis and said, just use these however you can. So when I say things from the Phantom Art Show, I'll keep talking while I hold these up, and hopefully you'll be able to see these on the screen. I'll just flick over.
So if you're watching it via YouTube, you'll be able to see. Oh, no, he didn't make mention of that.
And Jim starts talking.
Yeah, okay. So if you're listening at the moment, check us out on YouTube. It's going to be at about the 25-minute mark, or you can see on your player. So I'm holding up a copy of the Phantom board game, which people will recognise. They produced about 20 of these for sale. This particular piece is mounted on plywood, as you can see. It's bigger than the one that they sold, and it comes with. Peter did also send some of the prototypes of the figures that could be used to play it. So there's a Phantom and a Grand. There's a couple of other pieces there, 4 in total. There's Devil and there's a Diana as well. So that'll be packaged up, and we're going to sell that to help support production, postage, and of course anything that's left over that we don't use in those ways will be donated straight to the Red Cross. This is a massive piece, and I've got photos of myself 2 years ago posing with this in the gallery, and the idea that I'm now holding it and selling it is amazing. But anyway, that's a really big Phantom. He's 800 millimeters tall. He was repurposed after the art show as a sign, as you can see if you're watching discreetly as a sign if you're watching on YouTube, but you can check that one out. That will be available for sale via our Facebook page as well. And I should have mentioned linked to the board game, but we will sell these separately. The actual metal cast molds for Phantom and Devil. When I got my board game, I actually wondered if Devil's Paw had broken off in shipping or something. I now know because I'm holding the cast that it had not. And that's how it was made. And so that's really cool. And those will be available for sale as well. This will all take a couple of weeks to come out over Facebook. I guess.
Do you want to maybe just make mention how you're going to do it, or you're going to do that at the end once you've shown off the goodies?
Yeah, there's only a couple more to show. So I guess as I'm holding these, this is absolutely iconic. Anyone who's had anything to do with the Fenneman art show, Trevor Clark, if you're listening in particular, might be interested in this one. This is a wood cutout based on the Mr. Walker / Phantom designed by Dick Frizzle, signed under there, Frizz King 2016. So that was created for the art show and was on display. And finally, I guess another one of them, I'm not going to go through everything, there's quite a number. There's a totem that was done for the art show and was on display there as well. And he's a beautiful and quite large, as you can see, example. So what we think we're going to do, because we don't want to put it on eBay and lose fees and all that sort of stuff. We're not really in a position to run an auction. We haven't got the time. We've got full-time jobs. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of raffle them. But what's come into the Phantom community in the last 6 months or something is a faffle. So, quick editorial interjection here. What followed for the next 5 or 8 minutes or whatever was us waffling about faffles as we tried to work out how they worked. It was a faffle waffle. And what we came up with live on the podcast as we talked about it for the first time is not what we settled on when we had a proper discussion about it after the podcast. So for all details of how the faffles are going to work out, please make sure you check out the webpage that we're going to put on chroniclechamber.com. It will all be run through Facebook. Tickets for these are going to be about $10 a piece, depending on the item, and there is going to be a minimum amount that we want to raise before we will close the faffle and draw the ticket. But it is going to be short and sharp. So keep an eye out. There should be a post on chroniclechamber.com from about Monday the 20th, Tuesday the 21st, explaining it all, and they will start on Facebook later in the week, beginning 20th of January. All right, thanks. Back to the show.
The worst thing about this is that we can't enter.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing, because I like them.
Oh, mate, I'm so proud to be able to do this, and it's fantastic that Peter's given us these things to raffle. But I'm not going to lie, they're sitting down in my skull cave at the moment, and it's going to hurt a little bit to see them leave. So
Yes.
Have to take a few photos.
Oh, absolutely! I've got my own little Phantom art show again down here in my skull cave. So. So anyway, that's been a fantastic and so generous of Peter.
Yes.
There literally would be somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 worth of donations, and that's at bad pun, let's have a fire sale, but that's at the come on, let's get the money in type prices. So
there's going to be lots of Phantom fans out there that are going to be happy to be able to get it. And I guess the brilliant thing about, for like those totems, is, you could spend $10-20 and you can get yourself a totem that's probably it might cost you $200 from the art show or even more.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Something like that. Yeah, for sure.
And, thankfully, Peter, a legend, has given us free reign to be able to use them, to be able to get funds, to be able to basically do what we want to do.
And while I'm sitting here, look, as I lean down the other side, he also gave us, I don't know, there must be nearly 100 of these programs from the Phantom Art Show. We haven't even, he said, the note here says, sell them off for $1. He said, get
Yeah.
whatever you can for it, $1 each. So we haven't decided. I haven't even talked about it. Maybe we'll throw one in randomly with book purchases or whatever as we send them.
So yeah, we'll see. Maybe the winners, might, we'll get one and then we might sell them, or we might put them with the books or something. We'll sort that out. But there's been some other people that have helped as well. So let's.
No, absolutely. So we've mentioned, when Salat said, don't expect other people to do things. Other people are doing things as well, of course. And Hermes Press were probably the first one to jump on board and announce that I think it's still going while we're talking, but for the next period of time, whatever it was, that every Phantom book sale that they made was the profits or the percentage of that was going to Red Cross as well, which was fantastic to see that they got on board to donate in that way.
And then we believe that Fru's doing something as well. That hasn't been announced as of yet, but when we were talking with Fru, they did say that they've got a couple of ideas and are interested and keen to be able to do something as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's really important to stress that, whether it's Hermes Press or Sal selling his pictures, Lou Manners is advertised his today, and everything we're doing, what we're asking people is to contribute to Red Cross Australia. What Red Cross do is certainly over the really dangerous period of time, they were organising the immediate evacuation of people from those crisis centres, everyone who went down to the beach on New Year's Day, that sort of thing. Red Cross is involved in that. The relief efforts after the fact. One of the big things is the provision of first aid, not just medical first aid, getting people off the hospital, but then long-term the psychological and the trauma that people go through. Being one of the first people on the ground to be able to talk to someone who's just lost their house, who's just lost their partner, that sort of stuff. They've been providing food and water and other relief items to communities that have been really badly affected, and they even provide emergency grants to people who have lost their homes. So the work that they do has just been absolutely vital over the last little period of time and will continue to be. And it's just wonderful that so many people are coming together to support the efforts of the Red Cross, and we really appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who's buying some original artwork or down the track will buy the book from us.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we said this was going to be a short one. It is being a short one so far. So that's pretty much. And is there anything else that either of you guys want to say about the bushfire crisis, the efforts that we're doing, the book, et cetera, et cetera? We haven't come up with the title for it yet, I should say.
The other day I popped into my local comic shop and I told her what we're doing, and I asked her, give you a dozen books would she be happy to sell? Of course she was. More than happy to. But I also showed a couple of the images that were going to be in it, and she was really struck or really taken. And this was a few days ago. Now we've had more images come through, of course. But Guy's image and I better not say what it is, but the other one, I think it was Ranky Dean's piece. She was really taken aback by those two pieces in particular. Like left speechless and which is quite something because she does have the gift of being, working in retail and what have you. But she was really taken aback by all the images, but those two in particular that I showed her.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of the biggest well, not the biggest, but one of the conversations that pops up is what's going to be the cover. And honestly,
it changes every time we get a new one.
every second time. Oh, so this could be the cover. This could be the cover. So that's going to be, it'll be really.
Like, I'm going to buy. Oh yeah, I want that. Oh no, I want that one. No, that one. I want that one. There is some absolute quality that is coming through.
There is, and like we said, it's going to be less of us and more of the art. There's
yes. Oh, absolutely. We're certainly letting the art tell the story.
That's basically our brief. And that's the overriding rule: is that less of us, more of the art.
Absolutely.
So
all right. So part of the way that we're able to do this as well, we've talked about the stuff that we're able to sell to help raise funds for this. But again, part of the base of this is as always with everything that we do is our Patrons. And so we thank the patrons because the money that you've given this month is going directly to, and the money that you gave us last month and the money that you're going to give us next month, that all goes directly to this effort. There's every cent we're piling into doing this, and it may mean, because we did talk about we're going to do some merch at Supernova and that sort of thing. I think that's on the back burner because we just are trying to make sure that this is successful. We thank you one and all, every patron who's on board. I will say that at the time of printing, every patron that we have at the time of printing will have their name printed in the book. So if that's any incentive to you to give us an extra $5 and whatever, and it helps the cause, and also you'll be there. So am I going to say this one out loud on the podcast?
Okay. Go for it.
Patrons will also have 24 hours advance notice of when the book comes out, so that they'll be able to get in and get their orders first. Because as we say, right now as it stands, we have 200 copies that we're going to be able to produce, and I know that they're going to be popular. That will be a thing too. So, all right. Everything that you have heard about today, you can access on ChronicleChamber.com. We're going to make sure there's a really clear link to all of this fundraising effort, and so you can see the progress. We're going to provide little updates there as we go. We're not going to be uploading or showing the full picture of anyone's art. If artists want to put that on Facebook because they're selling the artwork and that sort of thing, we certainly will promote it there. But on our webpage, we're just going to be doing snippets so that you can get a bit of a hint of what's going to be in the book without seeing the full picture, because we want people to obviously value what's happening there with the book. So that's where you'll be able to see the progress and where we're up to. At the moment, we're aiming for mid-March of getting the book out. So look out for that. If you've got any suggestions, or if you want to contribute in any way, please email us at chroniclechamber@gmail.com. That email account has never seen so much activity as it has in the last 6 weeks. The last 2 weeks, sorry, since we opened this up.
Except when Joe signed up for Tinder.
So we are checking it religiously, and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. So if you're keen to help, if you're an artist and you can contribute, you've got a very short time left. But if any other offer of help, now that you know what we're doing, if there's a way that you can contribute to this and help us, by all means, please hit us up. We'll also try and keep you up to date via our social media. I've mentioned Facebook. Search us there, chroniclechamber.com. That's where all of the faffles will be held, and all of the updates will be. Obviously, you can watch this on YouTube. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. And again, as Germ said, we'll post alerts, I guess, there that the things are being sold on Facebook, if that's important for you. So, a bit of an unusual, different sort of a podcast today. We appreciate people listening. If you like what you've heard and are keen to hear more of what we do in the future, by all means, please subscribe on iTunes or Spotify or via whatever your favourite Android app is for your podcast. So thanks very much. Been a bit of a quick one tonight, Steve and Jim, but I think a really important one to get out there for people to listen to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yep, good on you, Dan. Well done.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, let's knuckle down, get our noses into this book, and happy phantoming.
Happy phantoming, guys, and thank you, everyone.
500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die.
The Phantom,
the ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He fights